Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today we will discuss John Milton's Paradise Lost, Book 5. Paradise Lost, Book 5, published in 1667. John Milton, 1608-1674. Book 5 of Paradise Lost begins a new phase in the epic by dramatizing the beginnings of temptation through Satan's influence. It shifts from the physical intrusion of evil in Eden, as happened in Book 4, to the verbal and ideological unraveling of innocence foreshadowing the fall. The book is structured in two main parts. First, the domestic and visionary scene in Eden, and second, the narrative flashback to heaven where the war between angels begin. Eve's dream, Satan's first assault. The book opens at a dawn in Eden with Adam and Eve awakening. Eve shares with Adam a troubling dream she had. In the dream, a mysterious being called Satan led her to the tree of knowledge and encouraged her to eat the forbidden fruit. She dreams that she flies and feels godlike after tasting it. Adam is disturbed but reassures her. He explains that dreams may not reflect the will and do not constitute sin unless acted upon. Yet the dream is significant. It reveals that Satan has already begun to undermine Eve's innocence by invading her subconscious. Milton uses the dream as a symbolic foreshadowing of temptation, echoing the psychological and spiritual vulnerability that will later lead to the fall. God sends Raphael to warn and instruct. In heaven, God sees the danger developing and decides to intervene. He sends the angel Raphael to warn Adam and the threat posed by Satan and to instruct him on obedience, free will, and the consequences of disobedience. God affirms that man was created with a freedom of will, the power to choose obedience or rebellion. He underscores the justice of divine judgment, that is, man will fall only by his own choice. This moment is key in Milton's theodicy, that is, the justification of God's ways. They reiterates that divine foreknowledge does not remove human responsibility. Raphael's mission is not just a protection, but a education. God wants Adam to understand what is at stake, emphasizing reason and understanding over blind obedience. Raphael's arrival in Eden. Raphael descends to earth in majestic glory. Milton describes the descent with a rich visual poetry that celebrates angelic presence and a divine light. The imagery evokes awe and a closeness of heaven to earth during this unfallen time. Adam joyfully welcomes Raphael and offers a meal, a scene of graceful hospitality and a symbolic communion. This meal between man and angel is one of the most significant theological moments in the epic. It emphasizes the harmony between heaven and earth before sin ruptures that unity. The act of sharing food suggests that humanity, though made of dust, can partake in divine understanding. Raphael gently engages with Adam, praising his innocence but warning him to remain alert. His tone is didactic but affectionate. Milton portrays him as a rational, loving tutor guiding humanity towards spiritual strength. Raphael begins the story of Satan's rebellion. Adam asks Raphael to tell him about the origin of Satan's enmity and how evil could arise in God's creation. This begins one of the most important sections of the poem, that is, the heavenly narrative which stretches across several books. Raphael recounts how Satan, once the highest of all angels, grew prideful and refused to honor God's Son when he was announced as divine. The moment when the Son is declared supreme marks a cosmic turning point. Satan's pride turns to envy and rebellion, and he begins to seduce other angels to join his cause. Milton portrays Satan not merely as evil, but as ambitious and rhetorically skilled, an archetype of the charismatic revolutionary. He manipulates fellow angels by questioning God's authority and framing submission as slavery. These are early indications of Satan's political demagoguery and Milton's interest in tyranny, freedom, and rebellion. The split in heaven and a coming war. By the end of Book 5, the heavenly hosts are divided. Satan's faction openly prepares for war, and God allows it to happen, affirming the reality of free will even among angels. Raphael's story in this book concludes at the brink of the celestial battle, which will be detailed in Book 6. The theological implication is clear. Pride is the root of rebellion, and rebellion results in the severing of divine harmony. But the warning is gentle. Raphael's instruction is framed as a gift of wisdom, not fear, designed to empower Adam to stay firm. Now let's analyze the symbols and themes in Book 5. Free will versus predestination. God knows the future, but gives humans freedom. This tension is a cornerstone of Milton's theological defense of divine justice. Dream as portals. Eve's dream introduces the psychological battleground, whereas temptation begins not in actions, but in thought. Hospitality and divine grace. Adam feeding Raphael reflects spiritual communion and a mutual respect between divine and human beings. Education as salvation. Raphael's arrival marks a shift from innocence to understanding. God doesn't merely command obedience, he provides rational guidance. Pride and ambition. Satan's origin story serves as both a cosmic drama and a mirror warning for Adam and mankind, showing how even the greatest can fall through unchecked ambition. Now let's analyze the critical views about Book 5, Theological Foundation of Free Will. Book 5 emphasizes that human beings were created with a free will and that disobedience arises not from divine design but personal choice. This is crucial to Milton's theodicy. God's justice is upheld because man is a rational agent. Dream as psychological infiltration. Eve's dream reflects Satan's early attempt to corrupt the human mind, showing that temptation often begins internally through subtle suggestion rather than open defiance. Education and enlightenment. Raphael's mission signifies the role of reason and divine instruction in resisting evil. Instead of commanding obedience, God chooses to educate Adam, highlighting Milton's belief in rational piety over blind submission. Hospitality as harmony. The sharing of a meal between Adam and Raphael symbolizes harmony between heaven and earth. It reflects prelapsarian innocence, openness, and mutual respect. Satan's pride as archetypal sin. Raphael's recounting of Satan's rebellion presents pride and ambition as the root causes of evil. This narrative serves as a cautionary parallel for Adam, warning of the dangers of challenging divine authority. Foreshadowing the fall. Book 5 builds attention toward humanity's eventual fall by tracing the cosmic origins of sin, linking angelic disobedience with a human vulnerability. Now let's analyze the main quotes from Book 5. First one. Dreams indeed are but a shadow of the truth. Spoken by Adam. Adam reassures Eve after her disturbing dream by suggesting that dreams are not necessarily reflective of moral failure. This line introduces the idea that temptation can begin subconsciously but still requires conscious action to become sin. It foreshadows how thought and imagination are the first battlegrounds in the fall from grace. The next quote. God made thee perfect, not immutable. Spoken by Raphael to Adam. Raphael reminds Adam that while he was made perfect, he was not made incapable of change. This is a crucial assertion of free will, indicating that perfection includes the freedom to choose. Milton uses this to emphasize that moral growth and testing are essential to divine design. Now the next quote. Freely we serve because we freely love. Spoken by Raphael. Raphael expresses that service to God arises from freedom and love, not a coercion. This line is a cornerstone of Milton's theology, that is, obedience is valuable only when it is freely chosen. It critiques authoritarianism and reinforces voluntary devotion as the highest spiritual ideal. Now the next quote. Stand fast to stand or fall, free in thine own arbitrament in lies. Raphael tells this to Adam. Raphael warns Adam that his fate is in his own hands. This line encapsulates the theme of personal responsibility and moral autonomy. Milton places the burden of choice and thus the justice of punishment squarely on the individual. Now the next quote. Sufficient to have us today, though free to fall. Spoken by God as quoted by Raphael. This succinct theological formula asserts that humanity had the capacity to remain obedient, but also the freedom to disobey. It underpins Milton's theodicy, showing that God's justice is upheld because he gave his creatures the tools to choose rightly. It balances grace with accountability. Now the next quote. Who can in reason then or right assume monarch of all things? Asked by Satan, recounted by Raphael. Satan questions God's authority and attempts to frame his rebellion as justified resistance to tyranny. This is one of the clearest moments in which Milton shows Satan's rhetorical manipulation, echoing political rebellion. It raises enduring questions about their power, legitimacy, and their rebellion. Now the next quote. Him who disobeys me disobeys. Spoken by God as reported by Raphael. This quote clarifies the divine hierarchy. Disobedience to the Son is disobedience to God. It counters Satan's claim that the Son's elevation is arbitrary or undeserved. Milton emphasizes that unity within the Godhead and a submission to divine order are central to cosmic harmony. Now the next quote. From whom all things proceed, and up to him as to their fountain return. Spoken by Raphael. Raphael affirms that all creation flows from God and is designed to return to God. This cyclical image of divine origin and return reflects a Neoplatonic influence in Milton's thought. It underscores the interconnectedness of creation and its purpose in glorifying the Creator. Now the next quote. This day I have begot whom I declare, my only Son. God the Father speaks as quoted by Raphael. This marks the formal anointing of the Son, prompting Satan's jealousy and rebellion. It represents a moment of divine revelation and a hierarchical ordering in heaven. For Milton, this is not about a arbitrary power, but establishing divine love and a filial relationship. Now the next quote. He of the first, if not the first archangel, great in power. Spoken by Raphael on Satan. Raphael describes Satan's former glory, noticing his high rank among angels. This highlights the tragedy of Satan's fall, emphasizing that his rebellion comes not from ignorance or oppression, but from pride. Milton humanizes Satan, making his fall a cautionary tale about a misused greatness. Now the next quote. For what can a war but an endless war still breed? Spoken by Raphael. Raphael reflects on the futility of conflict, noticing that war leads only to more war. This is both a warning against spiritual rebellion and a broader commentary on human politics and history. Milton uses this moment to advocate for peace, order, and obedience as divine virtues. Now the next quote. Reason is also choice. Spoken by Raphael. This brief but a powerful statement asserts that rationality is tied to freedom. The reason is to weigh options, which implies the existence of choice. It aligns with Milton's belief that true virtue arises from free deliberation, not compulsion. Now the next quote. To warn us timely of what might else have been our loss. Adam on Raphael's visit. Adam recognizes Raphael's visit as an act of divine grace aimed at educating and protecting. This reinforces the theme that God's mercy often takes the form of instruction. Raphael's role as a teacher is part of God's effort to enable informed moral agency. Now the next quote. With reason hath deep silence and demure seemed womanish to them. Spoken by Raphael on Eve's quietness. This line reflects Raphael's observation of Eve's demeanor during his discourse with Adam. It shows Milton's period-specific view on gender, with Eve representing grace and receptivity rather than equal participation in theological reasoning. It has been critically discussed in modern gender studies for implying inequality in intellect and spiritual authority. Now the next quote. What surmounts the reach of human sense, I shall delineate so. Spoken by Raphael. Raphael prepares to narrate divine and celestial events in ways humans can understand. This acknowledges the limitations of human reason, while also affirming that God reveals enough for moral guidance. It reflects Milton's balance between mystery and intelligibility in theology.